much. Okay, great. Then I'm just doing some quick changes whilst you're talking. Okay, you've got the recording on. All right, fantastic. Thanks, Debs, and greetings to Martin. And Paul, I just wanted to share with you, I see Paul Bolton's just arrived. Martin, how are you doing? You good? Fantastic.
How's it going?
Right, Paul. So I wanted to introduce you to Bertrand. He's in Texas at the moment, and at some stage he's going to move to Dar es Salaam. So
Oh, wow.
he's
Awesome.
he's looking to move back to Africa. So
Lovely.
we can just encourage him and hope that he makes it back in time. But yeah, really nice.
Awesome. Thanks, Howard.
Hi,
Awesome.
Paul.
Okay.
Good to meet you.
You as well. Cool, man.
Okay, great. So I'd just love to see those, if you wouldn't mind raising your hand, those of you that have some form of data literacy program going in your organization. How many of us, if you just raise your hand, any data literacy people done any data literacy? I'm sure you've done one, Mr. Kennedy. No, he's quiet. So it's just Crystalline. Crystalline, would you mind just sharing a little bit about your data literacy? You don't have to put your camera on, but if you can just give us an understanding of what do you do, what does your data literacy cover, and maybe why you started it.
Thanks, Howard. Just from our side, we do have an enterprise information governance forum in place.
Right.
Okay, and those people that actually sit here are senior managers. However, they may have either a data steward in the department, or they may have a data owner in the department.
Right.
And that cascades all the way down to everybody in the department, where we try to improve people's knowledge, particularly on data governance and data privacy, because data privacy is very key with us because we are a highly regulated environment.
Right.
So what we try to do is, over and above this, we also have roadshows. We also have some literacy training on a monthly basis where if it's compulsory training, everybody has to do it.
Okay.
And we have other forums that have workshops on privacy and governance aspects, and people are actually encouraged to attend these forums.
Okay.
So that's how we're trying to perpetuate or trying to encourage people to get a little more data savvy as such. And
fantastic.
Also, ways, all applications that they're responsible, all applications are getting, we try to encourage them to identify issues, bring it back to this forum, so we try to improve data issues and data quality.
Okay. And do you actually refer to it as a data literacy program, or do you have another term for it? Is it?
We take into consideration all the data management aspects. So sometimes it will be called data quality.
Right. Okay.
Data privacy, data governance.
Right. Okay. But the umbrella term is a data literacy program. Is that correct?
Yes, data literacy and data privacy, undermining data security.
Okay. And do you have any? How have the people responded to the term of data literacy? Have you had any challenges with that? Does everyone understand what it's all about when you present it, or do you need to go and explain?
No, we do have to go do a deep dive to give people overall background and why are we making this imperative, and why they're required to do the training, and why they're required to resolve the data issues within the various workspace.
All right. Thanks, Crystalline. And I suppose when I first heard of data literacy, a lot of the times it came out of the BI departments, and what they were trying to do was really to get people to be able to read the reports and the dashboards and the visualizations. Is that?
Yes, we also have that. We do have you know, self-service BI, where certain public data is available and can be consumed by everybody across the business. So there are certain web reports they can access, and they can
Right.
use that for the day-to-day
Okay.
consumption. Over and above that, there are, like I said, other initiatives running to kind of make people aware of data and
Okay.
governance.
Great. Thanks, Christeline. So my background, as I was saying just now, came from, I saw lots of people in the BI conferences talking about data literacy and trying to ensure that anybody reading a report was able to understand the report. And um, I I initially I thought, this is a good idea. And then in talking to a few people and listening to their stories, um, I started to pick up a bit of a negative reaction to data literacy. And there were two types of negative reactions. The first type of negative reaction was around the word literacy and not being comfortable with, in a way, acknowledging that you couldn't read a lot of the visualizations. And I always try to, in certainly in my data governance team, I try to also explain to them that one has to be careful of thinking that business people are data illiterate and can't read the visualizations. And then I'd show them some visualizations and say, well, are you able to read and explain to me what that visualization is all about? And I use the famous box plot and whisker plot, and I'm always surprised at the number of people that don't understand how to read and interpret what that box plot is saying. Um, so that's it's quite something in terms of recognizing that it's not just a business issue, and a lot of the times we present it as a business program. I mean, all of us suffer from that. And then what struck me was that this should not be a program just about the visualization and reading the data. It should be about all forms of data management. And Christine, I like what you've done there. It should be about everything relating to data. It's a data and AI competency framework, and that's sort of what I've put here. Um, and we've looked at all sorts of other options. Some people call it data abilities. What is your ability on working with data? And I think the important message is there. And sorry, there was another aspect that I've forgotten, and that was a business person saying to me, you keep on pushing this data literacy on me, but what offends him or what he got cross about was a case of you don't really understand business literacy and financial literacy, and you're now trying to force me to understand data literacy. And so there was a bit of a negative reaction on his side in terms of saying, why are you focusing on this when you don't even understand when I talk to you? So, and his final comment was, Howard, when you guys can speak business and finance, I learn how to speak data. So that was an interesting challenge that he put to our team. I think I'm not sure why, but I think he wasn't happy with it, with the thing of data literacy training for his people and everyone that was around it. But it keeps on going. I'm sure everybody's heard about it. I'd be very surprised if anyone hasn't heard about data literacy. Is there anyone that has never heard the term data literacy or understood what it is? And certainly my understanding with the core on data literacy, it's about reading the data reports or reading the reports from BI or AI or visualization. That's certainly my understanding. Are you capable of doing it? So is there anybody that hasn't heard of or seen some form of data literacy? who are the best people that do it? It's going to be your Tableaus and your Clicks. They came out with it. I think Click was doing some amazing work on data literacy. So just checking, is there anyone who hasn't heard or interacted with some form of data literacy assessment? Okay. All right, great. So, as you may have picked up, I'm not a fan of that data literacy. I am a fan of understanding how competent we are and how competent our resources are and that the people in our organization, and then providing them with the right level of training. And it's wherever we need to go to understand how to work with data, to change our data culture. um, it's about becoming proficient, and the more proficient we are, the better we are. And there was a nice thing that Tom Redmond did in his Data Doc People, where he did an infographic of um, the number of people in an organization that have come from university, that have come from the latest data generation, and these, he refers to them as data citizens. And then he spoke about normal people, my age, that really didn't grow up in the age we grew up with, calculators and slide rules. I remember using a slide rule for a brief period of time, and logbooks and things like that. And so there's this gap that we need to bring together, and we need to really just enable people to be able to understand. So this has been a long time coming. Lots of people have been asking for it. They want it. And of course, what we want to be able to do is to say, depending on where you're battling, and we can all be battling in different areas. We could be battling in data quality, that we don't understand data quality, or we could be battling in metadata, or document and content. There are so many of these different areas, and we need to be able to try pinpoint where you could benefit from doing the work that we need to do. And we're busy doing a almost a data executive review on what is important to them about the upskilling of their people. And one of the people we spoke to this week, he mentioned a proficiency test, and he said they've really got a lot of benefit out of that, where they would then understand how proficient their people are, and then allocate them to do certain work. So if they were proficient at doing data quality assessments or profiling, then they would like to use those people to do the quality work or work on big data assessments and areas like that. Okay, so we know that skill is important, and it's becoming more and more important, and we should have a good understanding of what the skill levels are within our organization, and can we deliver on the data strategy. So if we have this amazing data strategy, but we don't have the people to deliver it, it's going to get quite expensive, and we're going to miss the deadlines and time frames that we may have suggested. So I've sort of broken it up into these 4 areas. One is, are we able to communicate effectively to business people, to anybody, about data, and why do we need it, and what is our understanding of data and data management? Okay, so that's the first step, is are we able to communicate? Are you able to explain to a business person in 2 or 3 sentences, and not a big whole long story, about why data modeling is so important? Who's ever tried that? Who's ever tried to explain to a business person why they should learn to model data, and not machine learning modeling, but data modeling, dimensional modeling, relational modeling, data vault modeling, whichever modeling it is? Who's been able to convince a business person that they should learn how to do data modeling? Any comments? Any feedback? No one. Okay. Sure. All right. So it's communicating. Are we able to communicate? And I certainly, when I do lots of the training on fundamentals, one of the things I pick up on quite a lot is if I'm telling long stories, if it takes me a long time to describe a concept, then I probably don't understand that concept well enough. And it's interesting. I know Paul does it as well, and maybe Drew is. Sometimes we go through slides of the DMBOK, and there's one or two pictures or words that we can't fully explain, and we sort of either bumble over it or spend time trying to explain it, and we realize that, oh shucks, we don't fully understand this, and then we go past it, and the next time we see it again, it's like, oh, when am I going to learn and really understand this concept? Because I'm pretty sure that I don't, and I can't communicate properly. So if you're spending a long time trying to explain, then you probably don't understand. Um, and my brother challenged me on this, and the first time he was a business person. He's made lots of money, and he was asking me a question, and I was getting frustrated in explaining to him. And he said to me, Howard, just hold on there a little bit. Let me explain something to you. I don't consider myself to be stupid. So if you can't explain to me in a simple way, then you probably don't understand. And that's when I took a step back and I thought, oh dear, I do have to learn and improve on this approach of explaining and communicating about data. Uh, I'd love to get some feedback. Everyone's very quiet. I feel like I'm talking.
Howard?
Yes, Paul.
Yeah, so first, just a joke, but PowerPoint's got this wonderful thing called hide the slide.
Yeah.
Come back to it later when I get it.
Yeah.
And then it's a Mayday call to the home base.
Yeah.
Please explain this to me again, because I got myself twisted and I couldn't get out of it. So yeah, but no, 100%. And if exactly that, and I think the telltale signs are either the room goes quiet completely,
Like now.
and there's like zero feedback.
Right.
And then yeah, so those are just telltale signs that help me also. But if you end up waffling, then definitely
Yeah.
you're reaching. So
Yeah. So and sure, and I must say, in some cases I'm quite embarrassed about not fully understanding certain words that are used. For example, data provenance. I saw that for maybe 3 or 4 months of seeing the word data provenance on the slide deck and not really understanding it. And then finally, one day I said, no, I have to spend time understanding what this is all about and what's the difference between data provenance and data lineage, so that I could communicate properly. Now, of course, part of my job is to train people, so I should know all of the words and the terminology, but that DMBOK is so big, and the number of slides, I think we close on 800 slides to know every single statement in there. That's quite a bit. Okay, so that's the first step, communicate. And the second step that I talk about is, so can we communicate effectively, not bumbling, not taking too long to communicate it? If you had an elevator pitch, can you communicate the concept within 2, 3 minutes? Then it's write clearly. Okay, so can you write data in a way that's clear, that people understand it and can make use of it? And can you read comprehensively? So can you read what's ever on that screen and understand it? And then can you make informed decisions based on all of these things over here? Now, I used to call it argue. And then I thought, maybe that's really part of the reading. If we refer to that as active listening, Veronica doesn't like it when I argue. So I'm going to put it in a nice way. I'm going to actively listen and ask questions and try not to argue. Okay. So I got rid of the argue, and it's all about reading, listening actively to the data, and and then making a decision. Now, I do have, out of interest, I was really keen to get some feedback. We've got a series of almost 800 questions that we talk about in terms of trying to look at the efficiency or the proficiency that you have. And this is what it looks like. This is what the Excel looks like. And it talks about data management, communicating effectively. Okay, so if I was to ask you, what are the key principles of data management that support effective data analysis? Would you be able to explain to me within 2 minutes, and to be able to convince me as to what those principles are, and for me to say, oh, okay, I get it. I see what you're saying. And then data engineering. Okay, so what are the key differences between structured and unstructured data, and how do they impact the data engineering process? Can you explain that to me? Is there a way of communicating, especially to business people? They just say, take my Word document, or take my PowerPoint slide, or how about some Visio? Here you go. Please, can you ingest this data and get all of the information out of it? Okay. And then we go into data warehousing, business intelligence, machine learning. Okay, what is the difference between supervised and unsupervised? How do we evaluate the performance of a machine learning model? Feature engineering. Okay, how machine models used to support decision-making process. Okay, and then we've also got the generative AI. So some of the large language models, the small language models. Can you explain it? Now, I'm not always saying that you have to be able to do it, but as a consultant or as an advisor, and or a transformation agent, Crystalline, architects, those people that help the business transform, can we explain this technology to the business and help them see how it can be applied? Okay, so this is some of the first set of questions. I'm hoping you can see that communicating effectively is not as easy as what you may have thought. Okay, so if you would like to, I'd really love to get your feedback. And basically, how you would do it is on that proficiency rating, you would put yourself in. Okay, I'm 50% proficient in communicating about large language models in terms of how they generate coherent and contextual relevant text. Okay. So if you wouldn't mind, that would be great. And I'd love to get your feedback in terms of well, how effective do you communicate? Now, to be able to get it, there's the QR code. And here's the QR code, and it's in the Modelware library in Mighty. So if you'd like to, and there you can actually download the assessment over there. What I will do is every single time I go through, we will add some more, and then if you wouldn't mind following along and just seeing whether you meet the bar, whether you get to that level or not. Okay. All right. Okay, so that's what it's about. And so this is what I believe is important about this type of program. It's a proficiency program. It's understanding where we at, what our skill levels are. And I'd like to be able to say to you is what is our technical capabilities on being able to deliver whatever the data strategy asks us to deliver. Because you can come with some really fancy stuff about what you're going to do in this data strategy, and then you have a problem with the people. And then how do we assess our people? How do we make sure that they can do what we need them to do? And here are the things that I believe we need to look at. And just from a persona point of view, just to clarify that, it's not just about the business leaders. Okay. And so many times I get asked to do data literacy training, and it's about executives and functional managers. I'm always confronted with them. And I keep on asking, what about these people? Okay. Data thought leaders. Okay, those people that have been in data for many years, like Drew and myself, Is it a case of we don't need to do these assessments? Do we believe we can communicate everything effectively? Drew, just checking from your side, how confident are you in your communication on any data management topic?
So I've learned over the years to avoid the acronyms, and
Right.
it's been difficult for me, but I've learned also to speak slowly,
Okay.
and I check for understanding. So I'm better than I was. Am I perfect? By no means, no.
Right.
But yeah, I think I'm better than I was, and I seem to have the ability to talk in business language to business people.
Okay. And are you comfortable in the latest set of technologies like machine learning and generative AI in being able to understand it to them, explain it to them in terms of how they can use it, how that can impact them?
Probably better than most, but I avoid taking the deep techie dives, and I try and say, well, you could use it to do this and that. Here's an example. Why don't we sit together and try something?
Right.
But yeah,
Right.
like again, as I said, am I the absolute expert? No, but I
Okay.
do try and understand it myself that I can explain it.
Okay. Great. And I mean, I certainly from my side, I find that I'm always having to learn about a little bit more detail here about what these words in the DMBOK actually mean. And so sometimes I get a little bit nervous that I've got so much to learn and understand. I remember seeing data value realization for the first time and data ROI. I remember joining the EDM Council working group on data ROI, and they were just financial analysts, and they were just analyzing how to do the costings and the commercial feasibility of data. And I was quite stunned as to how much I had to learn and work out during the process. Um, and I'm glad to see Don here. Some of those visualizations that he does with economic data, I have to spend some time thinking about what they are saying and making sure that I understand what those numbers are communicating to me before I can comment on it. So I find that I need to pay attention to my ability to read and communicate and understand what the data is saying. Don, I'd love to hear from your side. I know you build lots and lots of visualizations. Do you have challenges with people not really understanding what it is that that visualization is saying? Do you spend a lot of time assessing that?
Thanks, Howard. I guess it's always a challenge. You have to think about how to most impactfully tell a
Yeah,
story. So
right.
I think there are two levels to the question that you're raising. One um, is just about making sure that the data concepts that are being displayed are well understood. And
Right.
so there's an amount of kind of industry knowledge that's needed there, and it depends about who the audience is. But
Yes.
in terms of the second question, that's where I think a lot of domain expertise in particular is important in understanding
Right.
how best to tell the story with specific data, and but the good news is that the dashboarding tools are getting better and better at helping you,
Sure.
but it's
Yeah.
not it doesn't replace um, having to think very hard about how to do that well.
Yeah.
But I think uh, to your point, that's why underlying infrastructure is so valuable, because if you give someone the ability to ask questions and look at the metadata,
Yes.
ideally interact with the dashboard to say, what if we slice the data this way? What if so?
Mm,
So to interrogate what is being communicated, I think
right.
the interactivity is ultimately key, whether that
Mm,
is to back to the data or to represent the data differently.
great. Thank you, Don. And just to go on to your point, this is an area I talk about in communicating effectively. And we built a data storytelling course. I don't know if you remember it. And what she did was, the lady who did it, she uses storytelling in movies. They have a way, script writers have a way of doing it. And this is typically the approach. They look at, first of all, general relevance. Can you establish general relevance to the people that are going to be reading the visualization, reading the data story that you're telling? Is the opening engaging? Do you have a clear story structure? What are the relatable characters, almost the personas that are being affected by this data? Is there any conflict in understanding, and how is that resolved? And then some form of emotional connection. So I've benefited a lot of being able to apply this thinking to the stories that I want to tell. And again, I always feel bad because I can see sometimes some of those amazing infographics that people put together, and they can almost bring the story together on a single page, and they look for general relevance. That's how can we tell the story and relate to as many people as possible? And you think of that in terms of making a movie or whatever it is, that's their challenge. They want to be able to extend it. Now, my challenge or my question is, well, how do we apply this to data? Okay, so there's some of the questions that I'd ask you in terms of the proficiency. Um, how can data storytelling enhance the understanding of complex data sets for diverse audiences? Okay, so these are the types of questions we would ask you, and see, are you able to tell and communicate this back to us? Um, okay, so that's sort of what I'm talking about. And Don, that's where you were going in terms of uh, being able to relate to things and being able to tell the proper story with the data that you have. Okay. And of course, when the problems get bigger, or you wanting to suggest that we may need to introduce a new reference and master data program, well, how do we tell a story? How do we engage them and apply that storytelling to us, if for our own benefit, so that we can help convince people and influence people? Okay, so when we go into communicating effectively, um, these are the areas that I believe that we need to check. We need to check our people and their understanding. So first of all, what's their understanding of the analytical concepts? Um, what's the difference between data management, data engineering, business intelligence, data science, machine learning, decision science? What are the differences between these different concepts, and why does the business need to understand it? What is important to be able to explain to them? Okay, then of course, responsible analytics, so data handling ethics and responsible AI. And how do we communicate it? How do we validate that what we're doing with the data is appropriate and it's not causing any harm? How do we check it before we even start, not at the end when someone says, "Oh, but now you caused all this damage in my life." How are we able to check it before it goes too far? And then the next one is analytical business applications, and this is the one that I was that Drew was talking about. And I was asking Drew there, is a case of, we always going to be building business applications. Now, what's happening these days is we are now able to improve the speed at which we come to a conclusion, or which we bring the experience. We can improve the speed at which we're doing it. And there's things like digital decisioning. And digital decisioning is basically, are we able to build a machine learning model or an RPA that can make a decision for us, and we don't need a human in the loop? Okay, so So the machine's going to keep on making it. Now, what type of decisions are you willing to allow these models to make decisions on? Okay. And then what is the level of quality that those models should live up to in terms of false positives and false negatives? And of course, we've seen so many stories of Microsoft with their chatbot communicating with people, and within a week, some people taught the machine to swear and issue racist comments. And then another one was people use generative AI to offer insurance advice. Now that's a problem because the bot is not phase compliant. And then they were taken to court and basically said, "This is the advice you gave me." And their answer was, "No, it wasn't us. It was a bot." And they said, "But then it shouldn't have offered the advice. If you're going to offer advice, then you got a challenge." So how do we bring these analytical approaches into our business applications? So instead of spending 3 weeks trying to get a person to apply for a loan, well, you pretty much know with the data within a couple of minutes, 10 minutes or 15 minutes. I can see certain companies are issuing loans in that period, home loans. So it's big money within 15 minutes. So how do we go on that? What models do we apply? And then we talk about confirmatory analytics, and that would be we confirming your expectations, we confirming what we believe the outcome should be. And then exploratory analytics is well, we've got this decision that we'd like to make. We want to build a new product. How do we explore the options? How do we understand what the customer needs? Because we probably don't know what it means and what they need. So we have to explore the concepts with the person. So those are the different types of applications and ways in which you can apply the analysis. And we need to be able to explain it to business as to how do we apply this and how do we get a change in the business applications. Then we've got data storytelling, and I presented some of that, the general relevance, the clear structure, conflict and resolution, and emotional connections. So that's, to me, what I see is communicating effectively. And that's the structure of the different areas. For those of you that want to do the rating and the ranking, that would be great. And so these are just some questions that I have that gives me a good understanding of, well, what is your understanding? What is your proficiency? So let's take a look at some of them. I shared this with you. And then the next one is, can you explain to me how data governance and or data quality impact analytical outcomes? Now, I find that most people can explain the data quality to a certain extent. They sometimes battle with the fit for purpose and the critical data elements, but a lot of them can't always explain data governance. And you'll find lots of business people wanting to know why this data governance is so important. How is it going to help them? And you need to be able to explain that in terms of improving their decision making. So there's a challenge there. How effectively can you communicate how data governance is going to help you? Anyone like to give it a go? Would anyone like to try to explain how that is? Christaline, maybe from your side, I know you are doing data governance. Is this the type of question that you would ask?
Sorry, I missed the first part. Oh, was the first portion on data governance?
Okay, so here's the question. The question is, you communicating your understanding of analytical concepts to anybody who doesn't know business or
Okay.
and then the question is, how do data governance and data quality impact analytical outcomes? So
Okay.
I'm sure data quality tends to be the easy one, but data governance is not that easy to be able to explain. Is that something you find that
Absolutely. And sometimes, sad to say, and this is the question Paul and I had a conversation about. You often find that data governance gets a backseat in simple English, primarily because people involved do not get the opportunity to effectively embed data governance in all aspects of the business.
Right.
This is why there's not a strong presence of data governance in all organizations, because it's not embedded effectively. You have a lot of students that come in, they learn the key concepts, they understand data governance, but do they go back to architecture and say, listen, guys, I want to put data governance overlay over the whole architecture design, for instance.
Right.
I want to put in the principles, the data governance patterns. I want to put in certain rules, regulations to embed data governance. And this is why it kind of, I feel the discipline doesn't get the presence and dominance that it needs.
Okay. Great. And I certainly also would like to add that is sometimes we as data governance specialists, we can't always explain to the business people the benefit that they will get out of it, because of course from their side it's a case of, well, what is in it for me? I know you want to do data governance and you've been tasked to do data governance, but what is in it for me? How do I benefit out of this? And sometimes we're not always able to very clearly explain to that business person, this is the value I can bring to you. And you'll not get anywhere if you want to talk about control and rules and regulations. You may, depends on how regulated your environment is, but there's a challenge. Yes, Crystalline.
Yeah, sorry, to add to that as well, I find the data scientists, data engineers find data governance to be a bit of a hindrance.
Yeah.
It delays them, because then you want to put in, for instance, if you want to go and put in data quality rules and force data quality, and then they say, no, it's too much of time. And what happens at the end of the project? You find you get garbage data.
You're right. 100%. Okay, so we have to be very crystal clear about what is it that they're going to benefit from, how is it going to help them, and we can't waffle and we can't go around the mountain. We have to be able to explain it. And so that's the first two questions, and then I go to the next set of questions, like in what ways can data management practices enhance the reliability of analytical models? Okay, so here we've got data scientists producing data models, analytical models. What do we need to do from a data governance point of view to enhance the reliability of analytical models? Are you able to question and ask the data scientist what is their level of reliability and how are we going to ensure that reliability, and have that appropriate discussion? And then put in practices, policies, principles, policies, and procedures and practices that you will get a reliable model. Now, I find that sometimes that the data governance people are not well versed enough to be able to convince a data scientist what needs to be done and what checks and balances need to be in place. So once again, we come back to is, can I explain it? Do I understand it? And are we comfortable with this? Okay. I see Umbanda has joined from Telkom. Umbanda, how do you feel about being able to explain some of these questions on the screen?
I'm driving, but yeah, I can talk.
Okay.
It's very challenging.
Okay.
You find that people have got a way of doing the things, and to move them away from trying to tell them the regulations and explaining the terms. They then ask for point of reference.
Right.
Where are you getting this from?
Yes.
Then you tend to say, right from Dharma, these are the recommendations.
Yes.
Then somehow they begin listening to.
Okay. Okay. And you're 100% correct. I always advise my people when they build policies and procedures, make sure you're referring and saying that these things come from an authority. It's not me, Howard Diesel. It's an authority that's presenting these things. And if you want to argue, well, let's go and have an argument with ISO as an example. And yes, of course, it needs to align to the business requirements, but it's also about having that strong conviction that you're doing the right thing. I don't like to call them best practices. I like to call them good practices, and basically say that, and in Gen AI, they're actually emerging practices. So we're going to say these are either emerging practices, these are good practices, but we're going to make them better. As we keep on monitoring ourselves, we're going to improve this, and that's some of the communication that you need to get through. Thanks, Umbanda. Now, so these are all the questions that I hope that you'd spend some time ranking yourself, and if you are interested, I can help you a little bit more in that scenario. But please check yourself. Can you explain some of these things? What skills are essential for the proficiency in data management within an analytical concept? So if you are going to set up an analytical team, what would you bring in? Or you have to set up big data and AI as a data governance people. Paul, if you were to set up an operating model, what skills, what people would you want to come in and do that? Okay, so yeah, lots and lots of questions. And then we go on to data engineering question. And do we have any data engineers in the room? Who's done data engineering? Nobody?
Hi, Howard.
Yes. Hi, how are you doing?
Good. It's Dineo here.
Hi, yes. How things
I
going
hope
on
you
your side?
can, yeah. I'm a data architect, but we tend to be called data engineers, especially if you work in the big data space. Let me
Okay.
just yeah. So I've sort of now morphed into a data engineer more than a
Okay.
data architect. But yeah.
Fantastic. So I have a question for you. This is specifically for you. Okay.
Mhm.
Can you explain the concept of data normalization and its importance in data engineering?
Is that a trick question?
No, it's I have to tell you the story that data modeling is really battling these days, and not many people see the value of data modeling, and that has been bothering me for a while. And I've made it a mission to be able to relate data modeling to data engineering, data cleaning, data preparation, wherever it goes. How does the data model help you? How can you benefit from data modeling? And of course, the technique is normalization, because most of us did it at university. We learned first, second, third, and third normal form, and then we hoped that we'd never have to do it again.
No, that's true. I mean, we tend to shy away from normalization, but I
Right,
mean, these days we just call it data cleaning. So all those transformations that we do on the data, that's
right.
in my mind, data normalization.
Okay. Now, what I like to also do that is in terms of data preparation. So we should have the step of preparing the data and then cleaning the data. And in data preparation, we should be saying, what's the purpose of this data? Is it for feature analysis? And then if we're going for feature analysis, do we build a wide data set? That means there's going to be zero normal form. Or what about a graph database? Do we go to anchor modeling or something like that that's going to help us? Or data vault modeling, and that's a combination between third normal form and dimensional modeling. What's the right level of data design, data preparation that we require to help with the data engineering?
Yeah, hey, no, yeah. That's a lot. It's a lot. The muscle. I think Martin Go also wants to say something around
Yes, I
data
know.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Yes, Martin.
No. Well, I'm all of this. I'm engineer, analyst, and I love governance thing. But I have really
great difficult to explain anything for anyone that not
Right.
from myself. And I know how important, like modeling. I did a lot of this, so for me it's very important. And whenever I go consultancy work, I always had these problems because to understand the business, you have to understand the data, and most companies don't have anything about. Just
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah.
always start from scratch.
Right.
But
And
people
then,
working there, they don't see this.
you're right. You're right. And so, yeah, and I think that's even more important, that we are able to communicate the importance of some of the data management functions that need to be performed at the right time when it's appropriate. So we don't want to throw the DMBOK at them and say, you must implement all of this, because then they'll probably run away and say it's not agile. And then you have to be able to say, well, some of the things we can't do away with, some of the things we need to still apply, whether it's agile or not. We still need to apply certain design principles to the data.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So here are the questions on data engineering. And this was on normalization. Danae, I'm glad you came up with that question. Then it's about communicating decision science. How do we do data warehousing? How do we do business intelligence? How do we do data science? And then how do we make decisions based on the data? So this decision science is something that not a lot of people are doing. They're doing these first three, but then that decision making is not as effective as we need to do. So here's some of the things. One aspect of data science, it's asking, can you explain these things? For example, can you explain the concept of overfitting and how to prevent it in a machine learning model? Okay, so data governance people, are you able to have a discussion with the data scientist as, have you overtrained the data model? And then how do I detect that the data model has been overtrained or overfitted? Depends on the term that you use. There's my discussion on storytelling. And then we go to things like writing clearly. So, Danae, this is what I like to do in terms of writing data clearly, prepare the data properly, clean the data, load the data, and then there's some level of data programming. A lot of the times we're moving the models to the data in big data science. Then data engineering, moving the data, building models, working and monitoring the AI systems, and then data visualization. So this is, to me, is about writing data and AI clearly. Are we able to do that? And are we aware of it? And here are some of the questions on data preparation. So running out of time a bit. So if you would like to see it a little bit later, happy to share that with you. Loading of the data. What types of data are we working with? What type of database management system should we be using for this type of data? Where should we store the data? Is it at the edge, or is it in the cloud, or can we stretch? Where's the most appropriate place for it? And then reading comprehensively. How do we read it properly? Reporting with the data, statistical analysis, making decisions. Business analysis. So this is an important thing. How do we get our business analysts to apply decision modeling? Okay, so we want to make decisions with the data. How do the business analysts do the decision modeling? And here are some of the things that we need to work through in terms of decision modeling. And then, of course, governance would have decision mandates as well. Who's responsible for making these decisions, and when can they make the decisions? Okay. Then we go to what's called human in the loop. Okay, so that's really big when it comes to digital decisioning. If we want to RPA something, and there's some challenges of being of somebody coming back and saying, no, how did you make this decision? How do we look at, and if we cause damage, how do we institute human in the loop? So there's this big question: human in the loop, human out of the loop. When can we take the human out of the loop? When do we need to bring human in the loop? Of course, all of the business people want to get as many humans out of the loop, right? So that they can work faster. And we need to be able to say, no, no, no. In this situation, you need to bring a human in the loop, and this is why. Okay. So there's questions on that, and then data-driven decision making. Okay, so the definition is on your company's key performance indicators, and I always like to be able to say this to my data scientists and my BI people: can you answer all these questions for every single KPI? What happened on the previous period? Could be a year, could be a quarter, could be 5 years. Why is it happening? Can you explain it? When will it happen? So when will we hit the budget, go out of money, get to where we wanted to do from a business point of view? When are we going to get? And what should we do to improve it or turn it around? So if we're not making the numbers, what do we do to turn it around? And then, of course, the last question is, what are we not seeing? What is it? What are we're not understanding something? What don't we know? And that's part of data-driven decision making. Okay. And then we had the persona, and we've spoken about these are the different people, the data citizens, the data professionals, your core data team. How do they surface insights? How do they ask and answer questions? Do they know how to ask and answer the questions that are expected of the business? And then data thought leaders is how do the thought leaders come up and design sophisticated systems for the business that will meet the business objectives and meet what they're required to do. All righty, so that's a quick run through competency framework about how competent are my people, how competent are we as an organization, as a data management office to support the business in making decisions and improving the speed, efficiency and effectiveness. How do we, and then transformation, how do we do that? Are there any questions, any comments? I'd love to get your feedback. For those of you that would like to try the proficiency and competency framework, I'd love to get your feedback. Mr. Bolton, I know you've been, a few people have been asking you for these frameworks. What's your feeling? What's your thinking about doing
No, I
something
made
like
the
this?
comments. It's a seriously challenging one, so I'm going to do it myself.
Okay.
Because I
Great.
face a lot of those questions, all the time, and also, as I said, when training, they're great questions to keep in mind and remember to communicate through the training.
Yeah.
I think, as a real high level, just why are we doing this? This is always so key.
Yeah.
There's so many things to do, and there's so many negative things that will be the result if you don't do them. But it's about selling that activity.
Yeah.
And so I'm certainly going to do it myself. And then, as you know, yes, I'm trying to prepare for a few inquiries where I want to build this program for organizations.
Okay. Great. And do you see it as being comprehensive enough? Is it
It's very, I think it's, feels like sometimes going to scare people away, but it's no, I think it's the same reason I enjoy the DMMA. I think it's a practical way to highlight areas that need improvement, and it's not like esoteric. It's, you can do something about it, and you can put down a roadmap or a plan, and that makes it tangible, which is cool, I think.
And I think one of the things that I think is important about these type of frameworks or data literacy program, first of all, it should be for everybody in the company. And second of all, it doesn't end. So it's not like you go there and then, 2 weeks later you're done and you're literate.
Yes.
Right. So does it have the depth of being able for you to grow and to come back in different areas? And I think that probably sometimes you're going to maybe learn how to write and read, and then you're going to come back to communicating, right? So yes, we should be able to communicate before we do something, but sometimes we don't understand it. So we've got to go back and we've got to go and maybe read first and then learn how to write and then learn how to communicate and then learn how to do informed decision making.
100%. I was on a call earlier with somebody. I mentioned it, I won't name and shame or but I was on a call with somebody who's expressing exactly that. Paul, help me separate the two groups, the data people and the non-data people, because I'm really, really struggling with the non-data people to explain why I need things done.
Okay.
And I'm just not, and she just expressed, I'm just not getting the message across. I'm so frustrated. They keep shouting at me. And then when I tell them what I need to do to make the shout go away, either they don't understand it, or I'm not communicating enough, or they don't believe me. One of the three, I don't know.
Okay.
But she's really sickling with that. So it's exactly this stuff, you know.
Okay. Yeah, it's a challenge, and I think we all have to accept the challenge and recognize that it's a lifelong learning thing that we're on.
Yes.
And none of us can talk to anything and everything and be clear about it.
Yes. Hundreds. Thanks, man. Awesome.
Great fun. Adam, what about you, sir? You've been quiet today. Normally you ask a lot
I
more
was going to
questions.
say that it's a nice bit of homework you set there.
I didn't mean to do that.
So,
I'm
yeah,
sorry
it's
about
definitely good as a self-awareness and self-test. So I think it's awesome. So yeah, I'm going to challenge myself by going through that.
Fantastic. And if you want to discuss anything, that will be great. Excellent. Okay, any more comments before we close? I certainly appeal to you that if you can, go through that initial one if you'd like. We'll start to open some more of those questions if people are interested. Otherwise, we'll find another way of communicating effectively. Great. Any questions, Bertrand? Anything from your side?
Howard,
Yes, Danelle.
I have a quick one, and that's now regarding this whole new AI world.
Yes.
I think you're missing a block there about communicating the business benefit or getting a business case out there for AI. Because I mean, I found that we've been struggling to actually show what the return on investment would be, because we've been busy with initiatives on the Gen AI side of things, but we are just stuck on just showing what the return on investment would be for the actual business going forward. So I'm not sure if that was covered before I joined.
No, it is covered in one of the questions. You'll find that for every single topic, what we have to be able to say is, how does this fit into and what is the value that we give back to the business people? What benefit do they get out of it? And how do they improve the clarity of presentations to stakeholders? So, and this is.
Let's see. No, the thing is with us, the data people, we don't talk numbers, and
You're right.
when you find yourself having to explain, what is your outlook for the next 5 years and talking to numbers,
Okay.
and then we get a bit overwhelmed and walk away.
Okay. So I think what you're saying, and I like what you're saying, is one of the areas that we should be talking about in terms of this communication, and if I just come back to this diagram, it's that's communicating effectively. Come on. So if I collapse all of this, I think what you're saying here is this thing of the value. How do we demonstrate the value that we're doing? The value of data management and the value of all of these things. So everything should have a benefit and a value to the business. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly what I'm saying. Because I found that at the end of things, people see us as data or AI people saying that these are just guys playing around with LLMs and stuff, but they can't really show us the value they are bringing with all these models. Because maybe most of the stuff is open source anyway in AI.
Right. Okay. All right. I'll certainly look at that. Thanks for your feedback. I'll take it in and see how I can work this. What benefit, what value does the business get out of it? Of course, developing their applications and then improving the insights or the outcomes of analysis. That's what we're really trying to do, right?
Correct. Thanks.
Okay, I'll do that and I'll update it. Thank you very much, Danae. Okay, great. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Belly. That's
All
good
right,
one.
man.
Right.
Cheers.
Thank you
Bye.
very much,
Bye.
as usual.
Thank you.